What is up, guys? This is Alex from Double Move Sports, back with another perfect offseason video. This is a series that's been incredibly fun where I take a team and I look at their free agents, the potential free agents on the open market, their cap space, their draft capital, potential trades as well. We're going to get into a huge trade in today's video that I'm super excited to break down. And I basically look at what would give this team the perfect 2021 offseason as we look forward to the 2021 NFL season and how this team can be successful, whether they're rebuilding or whether they're ready to compete. Today, we're getting into the Carolina Panthers, and this thing is going to get crazy. This is by far the craziest breakdown I have done. There are a ton of moves in this that I think could make the Panthers contenders right off the bat. But before we jump in, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, throw in the comments who you want to see me break down next. But let's get into these Carolina Panthers. They're coming off of a disappointing 5-11 season, and the biggest storylines of their season were the Christian McCaffrey injuries, and I would say also very average quarterback play from Teddy Bridgewater. Didn't absolutely crush them, but I think it was very clear. I'm a big Teddy Bridgewater fan, but it was very clear that he's not necessarily that guy that's going to take this team to the next level. So I think the Panthers are ready to potentially move on at quarterback if the opportunity is there. And this offseason, there are some of those opportunities, but we will get into that later. You kind of got to shake things up. And with $10 to $25 million of projected cap space, the Panthers can also do some roster and salary maneuvering to increase that enough to where they have flexibility to make some pretty big moves. So the first thing we're going to do to increase that cap space is cut a specific veteran on this team. In other videos, we've gone through several guys, but this time it's just one name that popped out to me. It's KAWAAN Short at defensive tackle. You know, he was a top interior lineman during his prime, but he's barely been on the field for the past 2 seasons. And, you know, at age 32 next season, I just think you have to move on. And you can save $10 to $12 million in cap space by cutting KAWAAN Short. So in this scenario, we're going to say that the Panthers go ahead and move on. They have Derek Brown, who they picked up in the draft last year to hopefully be the future star defensive tackle of this defense. And cutting KAWAAN Short is an easy way to clear about $10 million in cap space to go on top of the $10 to $25 million that's projected to be available, depending on how the cap shakes out. And now the Panthers suddenly have pretty good flexibility to bring back some of their own and maybe make a mid-tier signing or two in free agency. But before we get into the Panthers free agents, we're going to go ahead and do it. We are going to make the biggest trade of the offseason for the Carolina Panthers. This no doubt would be the perfect situation for the Panthers. It's the trade for Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson to Carolina would be one of the best, most exciting, most fun, most perfect landing spots possible. It could make sense for Houston. It could make sense for Carolina. And here's how the deal is going to go down. Deshaun Watson is going to go to Carolina in exchange for the 8th overall pick in this year's draft, the Panthers' 2nd round pick in this year's draft, and also the Panthers' 1st and 2nd round picks in the 2022 draft, along with quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. So a lot there. I'll repeat it. You get Deshaun Watson for a round 1 and a round 2 pick this year, a round 1 and a round 2 pick next year, and Teddy Bridgewater on top of that. I think there's a chance the Panthers might need to sprinkle in a couple more mid-tier selections as well. But in this perfect scenario, we are going to say they can do it for 2 1s, 2 2s, and Teddy Bridgewater. With Bridgewater's salary, it helps things almost net neutral for the time being in terms of salaries. It's not like they're taking on $30 million at the quarterback spot and not giving up a salary. So that actually gives the Panthers further flexibility as we look forward in this video. And obviously landing Deshaun Watson would make them contenders right off the bat. So there is the massive trade for Carolina. This team would be incredibly scary with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey at running back, and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson still under contract at the wide receiver spot. But now let's get into the Panthers free agents because they still have a lot of needs. They have a very young defense that actually came on pretty strong at the end of last season. We'll get into the defense a little bit in this video, but a lot of the needs are on the offensive line. The free agents for the Panthers, this is absolutely absurd. 4 starters on the offensive line are pending free agents, both guards and both tackles. I'll throw all the free agents on the screen here and run through the list really quickly. You've got Russell Okung and Taylor Moton at offensive tackle. You've got John Miller and Chris Reed at guard. At the skill positions, Mike Davis at running back, Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you have Tahir Whitehead. I'm going to butcher this name. Efe Obada and Rasul Douglas. So a lot of interesting names here, but we're going to dig right into that offensive line. 4 starters on this O-line, like I said a minute ago. And first we'll go with Russell Okung, and we're going to go ahead and let him go. He's battled injuries. He's a veteran that's probably going to demand a contract that the Panthers shouldn't pay, quite frankly, for the level of play he's given them and his inability to stay healthy on the field. So we're going to let Russell Okung go. I get it. That leaves a potential gap at the offensive tackle spot, but we'll address that a little bit later. And then on the other side, Taylor Moton, he's played very solid. He's graded out very well per PFF, Pro Football Focus, someone I really trust in analyzing a position and how they're truly performing on the field. He's coming off of his rookie deal. He needs to be a priority. He's probably going to demand a higher contract, but this is a young, talented offensive tackle that the Panthers absolutely need to bring back, especially if they land Deshaun Watson. Moving down this list to the guards, John Miller made a ton of mistakes on the O-line. It's best to let him go. Yes, it leaves a hole potentially at the guard spot, but you could probably slide in another option, whether it be in the draft or free agency, and you're not going to get much worse play than you got from John Miller. Sorry, I'm roasting him a little bit, but you just got to let him go. Chris Reed, he wasn't necessarily great either, but you got to bring someone back on a smaller deal. You don't just want to completely let all your offensive linemen walk out the door and bring in a fresh set. So we'll bring Chris Reed back to be a guard. Maybe he gets surpassed in camp by someone in free agency or the draft, but at least gives you some continuing continuity on that offensive line. Next, we'll get into the skill positions on offense. Mike Davis, this one's easy. You let him go. He filled in nicely for Christian McCaffrey last season, but assuming CMC's back, he's going to get the majority of the snaps on this offense. Yes, I do think they bring in maybe a younger running back to back up Christian McCaffrey, but for a guy who plays so many snaps at the running back spot, you don't need to pay a veteran to back him up. And then Curtis Samuel, this one's really tough. It would be great to keep him around, but it's not necessarily a huge need with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey in this offense. Curtis Samuel's a great player. I think he's going to be a great fit for potentially a lot of other teams in free agency. I know the Packers are being thrown around amongst several others as well, maybe even the Patriots for a playmaker. But I think you got to let Curtis Samuel go. And the only reason is this is essentially going to be a pick-em between Moton at offensive tackle and Curtis Samuel. I just think if you want to address some other positions in free agency, you have to let Curtis Samuel go. I don't think you can afford to bring him back when there are other positions of need for this Panthers team that are much more desperately a need than the wide receiver spot. So we will let Samuel go, which I know sucks. But really quickly, we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball here and wrap this up. We got Tahir Whitehead. This one's so easy. He played awful last season. Let him go. He was just straight up not good. He got surpassed. He was benched, so that's an easy one. Obata at defensive end, 5.5 sacks last season, second on the team. You bring him back on a small deal. He was a great rotational defensive lineman. Keep some depth at that position. It's not going to cost you too much. And then last but not least, Rasul Douglas, defensive back. We're going to let him go in this scenario. He had some ups, had some downs, had some flashes of good play, also struggled in a couple of games. So he's probably going to cost more than another player that could give the Panthers similar production would. So for that reason, we're going to let Douglas go and have a hole in the secondary as well. Next, we are going to flip to potential free agent targets. And I know we have some holes here now at tackle, at guard, at defensive back, and we're not going to address every single need because the Panthers are going to bring in some depth pieces, some veteran signings just to plug into the starting lineup. But we really want to talk about the big impact players for this Panthers team. And the first position of need I really want to get into is the tight end spot. Ever since Greg Olsen left, they're rolling with like Ian Thomas at tight end, and he just hasn't quite gotten it done as far as being an option in the passing game. And with Deshaun Watson, with Curtis Samuel now gone, you're going to want a tight end that can be a good outlet for Watson in this offense. And there are some decent options that could be available. You got Hunter Henry, JONNU Smith, Gerald Everett, all guys that could potentially hit the open market. But JONNU Smith is the guy I would love to see go to the Carolina Panthers, especially if they make that blockbuster trade for Deshaun Watson. He's a solid pass catcher. He has dynamic playmaking ability for a tight end. He can also block pretty well too. So this is kind of a do-it-all guy with McCaffrey in the backfield, with Watson at quarterback, that could really give this Panthers team a lift, really play a very solid role in this offense, and be a good outlet target for Watson along with Christian McCaffrey. And it really gives them the ability to let DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson do their work downfield because you do have Really, really good check down options for Watson. And then you also obviously have Watson who can run it pretty well himself. And if we look forward to the next spot I want to address in free agency here, it's the guard spot. We let John Miller go. I know we have a couple other holes to fill, but I think Cole Toner from the LA Chargers makes sense to bring in at guard. It helps replace the spot that John Miller is vacating, and he should provide better production and consistency at that spot. He's not going to cost too much. He's not one of these Brandon Scherf or Joe Tooney options that's going to be $10 to $15 million. It should just be a solid veteran signing to help bolster that offensive line that needs a lot of work, to be honest, this offseason. So Cole Toner is the signing there. JONNU Smith is the signing at tight end. And that does it. Those are the two big signings that I would love to see the Panthers make. Obviously, they're going to bring in depth in the secondary. Obviously, they're going to bring in some more depth at the linebacker spot and probably some on offense as well. But those are the notable names to cover there in free agency. And last but not least, we'll move on to the NFL draft. Typically, I only like to cover teams' first, second, and third round picks in this segment because, you know, the fourth through seventh rounds, the hit rate's lower. They might find some impact players, but the chances are just a little lower. But considering we traded round 1, pick 8, and round 2, pick 39 to Houston, we are going to cover rounds 3 and 4 here on this video. So in round 3, the Panthers have pick 73. In round 4, pick 103. They also have picks in rounds 5 through 7 as well. We aren't going to hit on those. We are going to hit on these round 3 and 4 picks, though. And in round 3, I would love to see the Panthers go to the wide receiver spot, find the Curtis Samuel replacement, and pick Tutu Atwell, wide receiver from the University of Louisville. And he is, to me, he's like a Curtis Samuel clone. He's versatile, he's athletic, he's dynamic in open space. He can do a lot of different things, and he could slide right into that wide receiver 3 spot for this Panthers team. You wouldn't need to get him, 8 touches a game, but get him a couple touches in open space, and he's one of those guys that can take any play to the house. You now have an unlimited assortment of options on this offense with Moore and Anderson on the outsides. You throw in Tutu Atwell into the slot, into some versatile situations, maybe jet sweeps, maybe coming out of the backfield. You got JONNU Smith in free agency. You got Christian McCaffrey at running back, Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Holy smokes, this offense would be unreal. So Tutu Atwell is the pick there in round 3. And in round 4, with pick 103, we are going to address the offensive tackle spot. I know we do have a little bit of a hole there because we let Russell Okung go. But we're going to go with Thayer Munford, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. The Panthers get a massive tackle that at least gives them depth on the offensive line. This would be a round 4 guy. I don't know that he's necessarily going to come in and be the starter from day one, but it at least gives them some camp competition with veteran Greg Little, who's already on the roster. And hopefully they can push each other to be that Russell Okung replacement. And hopefully they can get good play out of one of those two guys and fill out that offensive line. So Thayer Munford is the pick there from Ohio State. Obviously, the Panthers will have picks in rounds 5 through 7 as well, but I don't really want to go that deep. I really want to talk about the impact players here. But that pretty much does it, guys. We've hit on everything. We've hit on some trades, some cuts, re-signings, free agent signings, the draft. And really quickly before we go, I'm going to go ahead and recap everything we did here. First, we'll kind of talk about the guys we let go. We cut KAWAAN short, defensive tackle, and in free agency, we let go of Russell Okung, John Miller, Mike Davis, Curtis Samuel, Tahir Whitehead, and Rasul Douglas. We made the big blockbuster trade for Deshaun Watson, sending out 2 first-round, 2 second-round picks, and Teddy Bridgewater for Watson. And then the guys we brought in. Let's first look at the Panthers' own free agents. We brought back Taylor Moton on the offensive line, Chris Reed on the offensive line, Efe Obada on defense, and then in the open market, we picked up JONNU Smith and Cole Toner, and then in the draft, Tutu Atwell and Thayer Munford, offensive tackle. So a lot of big splash moves here for the Carolina Panthers. Most of these videos, I've kept it fairly conservative, but this Panthers video, I just think it was too exciting to think about the prospects of Deshaun Watson on this team. Rumors are that the Panthers might be making a push for him. So we will see what happens. I think wherever Deshaun Watson goes is obviously going to make that team an immediate contender, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that team builds weapons around Watson. But the Panthers are in a great position to do so. So that does it. Again, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop in the comments below what team you want to see me break down next. Also, what team you think Deshaun Watson is going to. I mean, the Bears are an option out there. Obviously, the Panthers, the Dolphins have had some rumors, so it's going to be good. It's going to be fun to see. But again, this is Alex from Double Move Sports, and we'll see you next time.